here we go.
Welcome to the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast. Pat and Scott, it's finally upon us. It's our Week 18, our final start-sit episode / competition. I'm hanging on by a thread. I don't think I can quite catch you, but you never know how things go. I'm not trailing too far, but we'll see. We'll see after this week, Week 18, what goes on. And I know we'll have some interesting names to speak about. First of all, folks, here at the 9 Route, we want to thank everybody for giving us a listen on YouTube, on Apple Podcast, on iHeartRadio, on Podbean, multiple platforms that you can listen to us on. You can always check out our website for any links, www.the9routeffb.com. Shoot us an email with some questions, comments, concerns regarding fantasy football, or anything. We're always down. Our email address is the9routeffb@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at the9route1. I am at Scott from Delco. Feel free to just hit us up. Let us know you're out there. Let us know you're listening. We'd love to know that you are supporting us and following. And again, hopefully, like we did last year, we will help you go deep here at the 9 Route all the way to a fantasy football championship, which is why you play the game, basically. Bragging rights, a belt, maybe some monetary contributions as well. Pat, how did we do this week?
You are up this week so far, 4-3. Again, with those 3 pending still to be scored, which brings our head-to-head matchup number to 83-79. So you are not by any means out of it. If you hit even 2 of these 3, you're only 2 behind heading into Week 18. So if you hit all 3, then you're 1 behind. So it's going to be close. We're definitely coming down to it, and it's going to be interesting and fun to finish this out here and see who takes it in our head-to-head. Our actual start-sit numbers are very close as well, as far as I was looking at our total right and wrong and all that stuff for the season. And we're right there with each other as far as overall numbers, the start-sit numbers, things like that. So you're ahead in the starts. You've got more starts right than I have. I've got you in the sits. And so right now we are I've got about 51% of my starts and sits correct. You were at 47%. So we're right there with each other. Again, that could easily flip-flop with one good or one bad week. So a lot riding on these next couple games here. So
good to know. Even a broken clock's right twice a day. So we have potential. Well, I guess then, am I still up? Do I have the right of first refusal? Or...
Yeah, you have the option to go first if you would like. It's completely up to you. You've been deferring, and that's been working for you. But
yeah, I will kick. I will take the ball in the second half, sir. So you are up.
All right, let's get this thing started then.
Start sits.
My start of the week at the quarterback position is going to be Aaron Rodgers. You could say, oh, that's a layup. That's an easy one. But Rodgers has not been great this year. As a matter of fact, the Packers haven't been great this year. Back in Week 10, they had and I think that was the week that Rodgers was injured. And, he said, oh, if we're not mathematically eliminated, I want to still play. But they had a 1% chance to make the playoffs in Week 10. That percentage has now jumped to 64%, and Green Bay controls their own destiny. If they win against the Lions in Green Bay, they're in the playoffs, regardless of what else happens. I have seen Aaron Rodgers come up big in these spots too many times to not think that he's going to do it again. Plus the fact that Detroit has been a top 10 fantasy defense versus running backs, but is second worst versus the quarterback, tells me that the Packers are probably going to need to throw the ball a little bit more in this one than they have in recent weeks. If you've been watching the NFL, which if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have. you've noticed that the Packers have been running the ball quite a bit more. Aside from that game against Carolina where the Panthers ran all over the Lions have been fairly stout against running backs and against the run, and have really leaked against the pass. So I think that the fact that that's where Detroit's defense is weak, the fact that Detroit can score in bunches, and that will probably put even more emphasis on Green Bay needing to score and keep scoring, knowing that, even if they get a lead, it's not safe versus this Lions offense. I think this is going to be one of the higher scoring games on the week, weather permitting. Obviously Green Bay, this time of year, anything can happen. But, as long as the weather stays cold but not, no precipitation, I actually like both quarterbacks in this game. But I'm going to take the reigning 2-time MVP over Jared Goff in this one.
I know one guy who I like this week. I think he smells the blood in the water. I'm happy to see him and his team doing well. That would be Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is my start of the week. They are going up against the Tennessee Titans. This is kind of like for all the marbles. I mean, there are some scenarios where things could kind of change, but the primetime matchup on Saturday, Tennessee goes to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars have had a very good season, rebounding from the abomination that was the Urban Meyer project from last year. Good to see that nothing got ruined. He's had good players around him. They went out and spent some money. They picked up Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. They picked up Zay Jones, and these are guys fantasy-wise that have been relevant at different points, sometimes more than expected throughout the season. Travis Etienne, his college teammate as well, is there. But really take a look at what Lawrence has done. Over the last 4 weeks, he is, albeit we still have a game to play as we record, but could probably do no worse than the 5th best fantasy quarterback. Put up over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception, over 100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Does fumble a little bit, but, that's going to happen. It happens to Josh Allen, happens to the best of them. And then overall on the season, again, now this won't play based off of that, but, you're looking at quarterback 7, maybe 8, depending on a couple points one way or the other in our league of record. That's pretty good. I kind of think that last year was a little bit of a throwaway year for him, unfortunately, but to see him step up the way he has this year, lead that team that, again, if they win, they're going to win their division and they will be an AFC playoff team. And Trevor Lawrence, to me, is going to be one of the best young quarterbacks coming up. And I love him this week in week 18. I think he gets it done.
Crazy how much a coaching change can change the whole franchise. If you see it in Jacksonville, you see it with the Giants. It's really amazing how good leadership can absolutely change the direction of a franchise. And I love Trevor Lawrence this week as well. I think it's a good pick. At running back, this week, I'm going to go with Cam Akers versus the Seattle Seahawks. Since being left for dead earlier this season, Akers has done everything he can to prove that his Achilles injury has not ended his career, and he's kind of played with a chip on his shoulder the last few weeks. He's been the RB3 over the last 4 weeks. That's not including week 17. He scored 78 PPR points during that stretch and added another 16.3 in week 17. So he's up to, 94 and a half points in 5 weeks, which, I'll take that for my running back in my fantasy playoffs for sure. I actually, strangely enough, I dropped Akers in our league of record back when, he wasn't getting any carries and, it just looked like the team was trying to go away. They actually, at the trade deadline, were looking to trade him. I held him up to the trade deadline. When he didn't get traded, I dropped him because I was like, well, if they don't want him and nobody else wants him, then I don't want him. And so I let him go to the waiver wire. And one of the teams that made our playoffs actually picked him up and has been playing him through the playoffs. And he's been doing really well. So this week he gets a Seattle defense that has been very good versus the wide receiver position, but has been third worst versus the running backs. It seems like the Rams' new model of success with Baker Mayfield at quarterback has been to run and then basically use play action off of that run game. I see Akers getting a ton of carries in this one and having another big week versus Seattle in week 18.
We'll see. I hope you're wrong. I'm looking to start one specific running back this week. I think he's going to get the lion's share of the action, so to speak. Throughout the season, he has been a top 10 running back. Struggled a little bit as of late, and there have been some things here and there that have contributed to that. But overall, Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots going up against the Buffalo Bills, who, right off the bat, you might say, hey, whoa, wait. Again, Bills might have a little less to play for than some other teams. At the same time, New England Patriots need to make sure that they hold on to that final playoff spot that they are in right now. New England, as bad as they've been, much maligned with quarterback issues and coaching issues and everything else. They are the current 7th seed in the AFC. They want to hold on to that. And a player of this magnitude and a coach that knows how to do things like try to keep the ball away and stuff. It hasn't worked a lot recently against Buffalo. Last year, there was the big win bowl that kind of, looked like, oh, well, New England has their number. And ever since, they've been getting a little bit embarrassed by that Buffalo Bills team, which a lot of teams do, get in line. But I think this is going to be a week where they just look to make sure that this guy just runs the football. They control the clock. They do everything they can to make sure that, again, to make sure that they get in. They have to win. And as long as they do win, they're in. So, I think that you're going to go with what got you there. It hasn't been the passing game. It's been the running game. You've had a couple people. Damian Harris has been banged up, but he was a contributor. Rookie Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, they've been thrown into the mix. But it's Ramondre Stevenson in that backfield. And I think he is going to lead the New England Patriots to a wild card playoff berth. And who knows where after that.
Can they lose this game and still make the playoffs? They can, right?
They can,
as long as Miami and Pittsburgh lose as well.
So, Pittsburgh or Patriots win at Bills, or Dolphins lost versus Jets, and Steelers lost, and Jaguars win. So they right, they control their destiny, but then they need a lot of dominoes to fall
if they don't
right
win.
Way.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Okay, yep. I just wanted to know because I listen. This is just my opinion, and I'm not saying that Stevenson's going to have a bad game. I just think for all the years that New England just trounced Buffalo and Tom Brady was there and New England was winning all their championships, I really feel like if Buffalo is still playing for the number 1 seed, I think they're going to want to absolutely destroy New England and send them packing personally. That's just my view on it. I feel like there's some bad blood between those two teams in that rivalry, but I had Ramondre Stevenson. He let me down in one of my leagues. So, hopefully if he's on your team and in your lineup week 18, hopefully he doesn't let you down because I definitely have felt that burn.
Might want to check your doctor. I don't know what kind of burn we're talking about there, buddy.
Yeah, I got
hopefully Melissa's not.
It's a Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, exactly.
At the wide receiver position, I'm going to go with Christian Watson, keeping with the Aaron Rodgers, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers game theme. It's pretty simple for this one. As I laid out with the Aaron Rodgers start, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. And Watson has been the one doing most of the scoring, at least through the air, for the Packers. Detroit is, like I said earlier, the very good matchup versus quarterbacks and wide receivers. Been pretty tough against running backs. So as much as Green Bay has been having success running the ball, I do think they are going to need to throw. And Watson has just shown. I think Christian Watson, and I mentioned this preseason. I was on Christian Watson early. I know that he had that first pass of the year. He dropped for an easy touchdown. Then he's been injured off and on this year. I think as long as he can sort of keep that injury bug away, I think Christian Watson is going to be an absolute player in this league. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver. I think he's going to be seen as one of the best wide receivers that came out of this draft. And there's a lot of good ones if you're looking at Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, who we haven't even seen yet. So I really like Christian Watson as a player, and I really like him this week versus Detroit in a game that, again, Packers win and they're in. So I think you're going to see some points from Green Bay.
You're putting all your eggs in one basket there, pal. I like that. Way to go. I got a piece of your action down the road there. So I do. I think Watson, kind of proved me a little bit wrong. I wasn't sure what was going to happen with all the injuries and everything going on, but he has definitely been, once they connect it and you've seen that play happen nonstop, so to speak, it finally, it put Green Bay back on the map. Aaron Rodgers looked like a competent quarterback, and I think that is massive when it comes to a team that lives off of that passing game that still has a couple good running backs in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. So it will be interesting to see. I am going to look at a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, may not be the most pop out one, so to speak, but Devontae Smith, who had a nice rookie campaign last year, and some people thought maybe wasn't going to live up to the hype of, he's too small for the NFL. And he has quietly been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He is the Slim Reaper for a reason. AJ Brown gets all the hype, and again, deservedly so. And I feel like these two definitely play off of each other. Jalen Hurts, obviously being the quarterback and looking downfield. AJ Brown in our league of record currently is the wide receiver 5 going into, again, there's a Monday night matchup that still has to play. 84 catches, 1,401 yards, 11 touchdowns, closing in on 300 points. Not so far down the trough is Devontae Smith, who is wide receiver 9 on the season. 88 catches, 1,129 yards, 7 touchdowns. Over the last 4 weeks, he has been wide receiver 4. Over the last 2 weeks, wide receiver 3. And if anybody watches the games, you see that, AJ Brown makes some big plays, gets those chunk yardage, and he's a good receiver of the football. But Devontae Smith is a different breed altogether. And I feel like when it's all said and done, he's the better of the 2 wide receivers. I know some people might want to debate that. He's got a great matchup this week against the New York Giants, where the Eagles have a lot to play for. Giants have been decent against the wide receiver position, but have been leaking oil over the last 4 weeks. They're actually the 4th worst against the pass over the last 4 weeks, and they are a bottom 6, I guess if you want to call it that, over the last 2 weeks. So, Giants may or may not be playing for something that's great. I think Devontae Smith is going to have a pretty big game, as he's been having throughout the season, and I like Devontae Smith as my wide receiver start of the week.
Yeah, I think when the Eagles made that trade for AJ Brown, I felt like Devontae Smith was the biggest winner because he did have a good rookie season, but now he didn't have to be the focal point. And I think, I don't want to say better receiver or worse receiver or whatever, but I do think that having a bigger bodied alpha type receiver like AJ Brown on the team has really allowed Devontae Smith to become what he is, which is a guy who can basically catch anything that you throw anywhere near him. And he's proven that he is a great route runner and a great possession receiver for the Eagles this year. So, I think you're taking a top 10 wide receiver on the season there as your start of the week is you're really fishing for that one. I appreciate that.
I'm sorry. We won't go there. Just listen.
Hey, I get it. I got it for my pick last week. So yeah, I got to give it back a little bit.
I was willing to sit Justin Jefferson a couple weeks back.
He should have been your sit this week.
I was close. I was so close. But again, you're just talking about tandem wide receivers, and yeah, there aren't many like Justin Jefferson. Everybody considers the best in football and all that. Adam Thielen isn't chopped liver as a number 2, and then they bring in TJ Hawkinson, who's a competent tight end. You have a pass catching running back. Like, these guys are all parts of really clicking offenses. There aren't many standalones that are in fantasy this year. Like an Amari Cooper is an outlier who, you could say that there's other players on that team, sure, but he's a guy that kind of stands out to me as one of those few and far between. I mean, for DK Metcalf, you still have Tyler Lockett. Both of them have excelled this season. You got, the triplet concept with Cincinnati. So yeah, there aren't many individual guys, and I know what you say about that, where they're gaining on that level. Like, for the New York Giants, they've had so many injury issues and questions at the wide receiver position, and I mean, they don't really have anybody except, looking right now at our league of record, the Giants have the 49th and 50th receivers are their first 2 on the board. So, for them to be able to do what they're doing does say a lot to make the playoffs with two wide receivers that combine equal the numbers of an AJ Brown or somebody like that. So,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thought if some of these teams do, find a way to add to the collection.
All right, let's move on to the tight end position. It's kind of funny talk about piggyback, and I'm going to piggyback off your quarterback here, and I'm going to go with Evan Ingram versus the Tennessee Titans as my start of the week at tight end. Believe it or not, the Jaguars come into this game against not only the defending AFC South champs, but the defending number 1 seed in the AFC with a better record and are 7-point favorites as of right now in Vegas. While I do think that line's going to come down a little bit, I also think that the Jags have the potential to blow the Titans completely out of the water in this game. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is an outcome that I don't think the Titans can blow Jacksonville out. I think the Titans are either going to win a close game, or Jacksonville's going to win a close game, or Jacksonville's going to blow them out. But I don't really see it going the other way. I don't think Tennessee has the capability to beat Jacksonville like 30-3. Whereas I think that the Jaguars do have that ability in this game. And I think this game could be remembered as the game where Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence took over this division and started a stretch of, a few years of division championships in a row. I think Ingram has been a huge reason why the Jaguars are where they are right now. He's 6th in targets, 4th in receptions, and 5th in fantasy points at the tight end position this year. And before the season, he had other teams that were interested. He took a 1-year sort of prove it deal in Jacksonville once they hired Doug Peterson as head coach, because he knew how much Doug Peterson used his tight ends in his passing scheme. And he bet on his own ability, hopefully given some opportunities there in Doug Peterson's offense. And he was right. He completely turned his career around, and he's now looking to make the playoffs for the first time as a professional. Maybe, who knows, maybe he always has been as good as he showed in his rookie season, and Joe Judge and the Giants coaching staff was the problem. I don't know. I mean, just saying, it's possible.
I do agree there. Joe Judge, once you name that, Matt Patricia, I think you see, you ruined Hunter Henry in New England in his season. So, you see that they are a tight end killer, and it's a shame. Speaking of, piggybacking off of the quarterback concept, Duche, or should I say Summer's Eve, I am going to go with Robert Tonyan. That's right, Big Shot Bob, against the Detroit Lions, who are pretty bad against the tight end position. Their defense, they might eat kneecaps for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but they sure do give up points. They've been a little bit better over, the course of the season. They've tightened some things up, but they're still near the bottom. And I think if you're going to make anything start to click with that offense, a guy like this is somebody that, if Christian Watson's having some issues, and obviously you have Romeo Doubs and you have a couple different pieces on that offense that are still tangible, that Tonyan himself is just one of those guys that I think Aaron Rodgers always looks at. He's a go-to guy. We know he just had a heavy touchdown laden season, and everybody talked about regression and everything else. Just came off a very nice game against the Minnesota Vikings, but then again, the entire offense had a very nice game against the Minnesota Vikings.
And the defense and the special teams.
Oh my God, yeah, dude, that hole was huge, man. And I feel bad saying that in multiple reasons, but yes, Tonyan, 3 catches on 4 targets, 52 yards and a touchdown. So, you see that is there, that potential for those two to click. And, if they get in the playoffs, you never know what happens. Tanyan's had a couple stinkers throughout the season, hadn't been doing awesome as of late. But again, you've seen Christian Watson's ascension and a little bit more love just getting the ball around. So Tonyan, to me, great matchup against Detroit. He's a guy that, could end up winning the game for him. And again, I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a top 10 tight end this week against that Detroit Lions defense.
I like him a lot.
I like it a lot.
All right, let's move on to the defenses. My start this week is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants. We mentioned in our last episode that the Giants really have nothing to play for other than maybe the revenge narrative from a few years ago when the Eagles pulled their starters in a meaningless Week 17 game versus Washington. And that knocked that's when the Giants, I think, were 6-10 and had a chance to win the division still. And then Washington ended up winning it at 7-9. But I mean, realistically, none of those coaches are the same, and the Giants really wouldn't gain anything. It's not like they're knocking the Eagles out of the playoffs. Really, the only thing they would be doing would be helping the Cowboys win the division, who I'm pretty sure they hate the Cowboys more than they hate the Eagles. So to me, it just doesn't seem. I'm sure the Giants are going to play the game, and they're not going to roll over. But without them being able to improve their seeding, there's no incentive for them to go out and absolutely give it 100% and try to win this game. I mean, if the Eagles give it away, that's one thing, but I just don't see the Giants, being all that motivated to beat the Eagles in this one. The Eagles, however, have everything to play for. Not only did they need to get back on track after losing 2 games in a row, but obviously this win would secure the NFC East Championship and the number 1 seed in the NFC and the only bye week going into the playoffs in the NFC. And with Jalen Hurts looking to return from his shoulder injury and the Eagles defense looking to rebound from a couple of tough losses, I can see Philadelphia just kind of manhandling the Giants like they did in their earlier game this year. And, I really like their defense to both sides of the ball in Philadelphia. I think they know what they're playing for. And I think both sides are going to show up. And I kind of have a bad feeling or a good feeling, I guess, if you're an Eagles fan, I have a good feeling that this is going to be a very lopsided game versus the Giants in this one.
I really hope you're right on this one.
This is the only one, right?
I back you 1,000%, sir. So I will take the L on this one. That's fine. Speaking of taking L's, a team that was doing it early in the season and has found a way to win with a rookie quarterback, and their defense finally got healthy. Oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They haven't been world beaters throughout the season. They've had their ups and downs. Obviously, we see how much of an effect TJ Watt has on that team as a whole. Once he came back, it seemed like they kind of really righted the ship. And, on fantasy purposes, we're putting up some reasonable points. They had, a close game, to say the least, against Baltimore to kind of get them to the point where they do stand a chance. Again, I look at some of this on this concept that they have a chance to make the playoffs. So right now, the New England Patriots hold the 7th seed. The Pittsburgh Steelers can get in with some win and help concepts. And this is very tangible. Probably they have one of the best outputs concepts of getting into the playoffs. But that if the Steelers win against the Browns, the Dolphins lose to the Jets, they'll be starting Skylar Thompson. And the Patriots lose to the Bills, which, yes, could very well happen, like you said, to put a nail in the coffin on that team. Suddenly, the Steelers are in the playoffs. So they just got to play really tough, really hard against the Cleveland Browns, who have nothing to play for other than to knock them out. Now, it is an AFC North game, so these are bloodbaths usually. And, the Steelers are to me, a team that really wants to prove that they have a shot. They got beat earlier this year at Cleveland, and that was when the team was really kind of falling apart. You had Mitch Trubisky in there, gave up almost 30 points to Jacoby Brissett and that team. And I like the Steelers. I think they're going to find a way to just beat people up. Mike Tomlin knows how to make the playoffs. He knows how to get the most out of his players. He's kind of always been maligned, but I think he's one of the best coaches in football. And I think Pittsburgh is going to be a double-digit, hear me out, double-digit defense. They're going to try to eat Deshaun Watson alive. So we'll see what happens.
As long as they don't try to rub him down, I think we're good.
No, they'll be laying the smack down. But as far as rub downs, that's post game, and I'll take the high road on that. I don't joke about my
you
QB1.
and the high road. I don't even think you know where the high road is.
I don't joke about my QB1. Thank you, sir.
A couple other good streaming defenses this week, just before we get into the sits. Indianapolis and Houston, I would take either of those defenses. I think that both of those teams turn the ball over enough and are inept enough on offense to potentially warrant a defensive score from either side. Also, like San Francisco versus Arizona. Arizona's got nothing to play for. San Francisco, like we mentioned in our last episode, could still possibly – they won't know whether or not the 1 seed is up for grab because they're going to be playing at the same time as Philadelphia. So San Francisco is going to be playing hard. They're going to try to win that game, and they're going to take Arizona behind the old shed there and whoop them. And
God, I didn't know where you were going with that one.
And I like Jacksonville versus Tennessee as well. Like I said, I think Jacksonville has the potential to win a blowout game there. I don't necessarily think that it's going to happen, but I think their defense has been playing really well the last few weeks, and I think they're going to be up for this game. They're the first time their franchise has won the division in was it like 14 years or 15 years or something like that. So I think that whole team is going to be up for that game. So I like Jacksonville's defense as well. All right, let's jump into our sits. At the quarterback position, I'm going to sit Justin Herbert this week versus Denver. Not only is Denver the third toughest matchup versus quarterback in fantasy, but the Chargers are in a spot where they could be resting some of their key players. I think with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams' injury history, I can't really see a scenario where they would want to play those guys that much, if even at all, honestly. I think it would be smart for the Chargers to rest Eckler and Herbert as well. I mean, why play a meaningless game against a really tough defense and risk injury, if it doesn't mean anything for your playoff chances? And Justin Herbert, can you guess points per game where you think Justin Herbert is amongst all quarterbacks in the league right now? Give me a guess. Now remember, he was drafted as probably the quarterback 2 or 3, maybe 4 in most leagues. Where do you think he is points per game amongst quarterbacks?
Just a ranking?
Yeah.
Points per game. God, I'd probably say like 8th.
He is 17th in points per game this year.
Okay.
17th. So, I mean, not that necessarily is the only thing that would lead me to want to sit him this week. Obviously, I laid out some other reasons there, but Herbert just hasn't been as good this year as he was. Now, a lot of that does have to do with the fact that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams.
I was waiting for you
and stuff like that. So I get it, but the whole point is, I just don't. This doesn't shape up to me as a game where the Chargers need to come out and blow Denver's doors, even if they could, which I don't think they can because Denver's defense is so good. This doesn't seem like the type of game where they're going to want to come out and do that. I think they're just going to try to get through this game, narrowly escape. I actually think, this isn't a betting podcast, but I actually think you could take Denver in this game with the points. I don't know exactly where they're at in this game. Let me look real quick.
They are a
3-point favorite. That's actually kind of small. I think you could take Denver in this one. I think Denver may actually win this game. I just don't see the Chargers showing up for this one. I don't see a need to.
No, but dude, here's what I like. I know what you're saying, and again, they may decide to only play a half or a quarter. I think Herbert. I ended up trading Justin Herbert in my one dynasty league this year. I got a pretty good haul for him, which is why I did it. I think I ended up getting Eckler, Christian Watson, a first or second round draft pick. Like it kind of worked in my favor. But no, I think the injuries to that receiving core really decimated them. I mean, at one point you had the 1, the 2, I think their top 4 wide receivers were all out. And you had Josh Palmer gets hurt, and then it's DeAnthony Carter and some names that you really had never heard of before for the sake of a week or two. Rookies
so much so that you don't even know what they are.
Dude, I mean, seriously, like when you go and look, okay, tough guy, here we go. I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to say yes, no, he was definitely unimpressive this year based off of that, points per game stuff. And I know how you're kind of angling that, but you're looking at the team leaders in targets. So you got Austin Eckler. So you're running back at 123 targets. Josh Palmer, 101. Mike Williams, 88, and he had missed some time. Gerald Everett had a very nice first year with them. Keenan Allen, 78 targets in 9 games, which is insane. And then DeAndre Carter, Michael Bandy. That's right. Yeah. Okay. How could I forget Michael Bandy? We all know him. Trey McKitty, tight end. Jalen Guyton got hurt right off the bat. They really haven't had. Herbert himself has 2 catches on 2 targets for minus 10 yards, but we won't go there. No, I do think that the injuries were a major factor that kind of took him from being that upper echelon guy where people question, oh, he's not that good. It's really, I think Denver's defense is going to say, you know what, we're good for this year. Let's just go home. I kind of think it. I really hope you're wrong, but we'll see.
I just don't think. I don't even think he's going to play the full game.
I wouldn't
start him.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I wouldn't start him if I'm in a championship in Week 18. I wouldn't start him just due to the fact that he's playing against a good defense. You don't know what Denver's going to do or not going to do, and there's no incentive for the Chargers to win this game. So, again, why put Keenan Allen out there and risk injury when the guy, he gets injured quite often. Why put Mike Williams out there and risk injury when he also gets injured quite often? Like I can see Josh Palmer being the team leader in targets in this game, and Justin Herbert maybe playing a quarter or a half or something like that. It's just not if he even plays at all. It's just not a good situation and not a guy that I want to be relying on if I'm in a championship game in Week 18.
So Jarrett Stidham, Brock Purdy, Mike White, Andy Dalton, or Justin Herbert?
I would probably play any of the first three. I don't think I'd play. No, I probably would play Andy Dalton. I would play all of them over Justin Herbert this week, honestly.
All right.
I would.
I appreciate your determination, sir. All right. A quarterback that I think could be in the same boat, which is kind of why I went there. I'm looking at Danny Dimes. I think
you got to start calling him Danny Nichols, man.
No, hey, listen.
That's true.
I would have.
He has been kind of killing it this year.
I would have said you were correct, and yes, he does tend to make it hail one way or the other when it comes to change. But for a quarterback and a team to make the playoffs, and again, I know we rip him. We look back to years of just poor play, and people thought he wasn't even NFL caliber. He's the 10th quarterback going into our Monday night matchup. Now, when it comes to passing yards, he's like so far down there. Like Russell Wilson has more passing yards than he does. Like it's scary. Jalen Hurts has missed 2 games and has less. Aaron Rodgers has more. Derek Carr. He does it with his legs. But I feel like if the Giants decide to play him against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the 5th best against the quarterback, yes, they do give up points, but stats don't lie, at least on that level. That Jones is going to be a guy that they're going to look to kind of, bubble wrap, so to speak, for the playoffs. I mean, the Eagles, they had a hell of a game against them the first time around, and obviously things are different now. Maybe Jalen Hurts plays. The Eagles are definitely playing for something. But, you put up 48 points on that team. The Giants only scored 22 points. Jones was 18 to 27, 169, a touchdown. He got sacked 4 times. It was good. I don't think he's going to be playing for, again, really anything. Like you're just kind of almost had your Herbert point. I feel like Daniel Jones, if he's gotten you to this point, you probably were already kind of fishing around to see if there was anybody else out there. And again, a Stidham, a Purdy, an Andy Dalton, there probably are going to be some better options because the chances of him playing 60 minutes of football and putting up crazy stats that are going to carry you to a fantasy football championship this week are kind of slim. I mean, if he got you this far, that's great. But yeah, this is one of those games where I think you kind of have to look to, unfortunately, say, hey, look, yeah, you're my guy, but I got to go get so-and-so off the waiver wire. I'm going to, and then you got slim pickings as of what it is now. At the same time, do you pick up somebody as bad as like a Davis Mills to fill in or something? No, you have to go with what got you there. But again, somebody could be out there. Aaron Rodgers could be out there playing for that title. I know you had him as your start, and to me, that's the play. So Daniel Jones, unfortunately, will not be bringing home any bacon this week.
All right, let's go to the running back position. My sit at the running back position this week is going to be Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders versus the Dallas Cowboys. Again, we talked about the schedule makers in our last episode doing a fairly decent job. So Dallas is going to be playing their game with the NFC East title still on the line. They're not going to know Philly's going to be playing at the same time. So they technically could still be playing for the number 1 overall seed, depending on, how everything shakes out and, the other teams playing in that late window. So I think Dallas is going to come out super motivated to win this game. They're the 4th toughest matchup versus the running back position in fantasy football. And the Commanders have honestly looked pretty terrible with Carson Wentz back at quarterback. For 2nd straight year, he's given away his team's chance to, get in the playoffs with a multiple interception game. I see the Cowboys just coming out of this game with another big win. They've blown a few teams out this year, and I think this is another one of those potential blowout games for Dallas. And I think, if Washington gets too far behind, that's going to limit the number of touches that Robinson gets, and it's just not really enough touchdown opportunity in this game for me to want to play him. So I do have him in our league of record in the toilet bowl. I am going to be looking for another option at running back instead of Brian Robinson this week. I just think the Cowboys are going to be too motivated to come out and, put the clamps down on the Washington Commanders this week.
Maybe. My guy that I'm sitting is, again, more of a gut feeling, probably wrong. Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs. Las Vegas with nothing to play for and looking to, as they said, which they showed with Jarrett Stidham, to see what else they have on the roster. I feel like there's nothing unless Jacobs is playing for some contract incentives, albeit I think he's a free agent. So, obviously, but he has put up a solid season, enough that's going to get him a job, possibly again with Las Vegas or with another team, definitely, because he's still young enough to be effective for another good 3-4 years. But you have a couple young players, Zamir White, rookie out of Georgia, who's got a bit of an ankle injury, but I think they're going to want to see maybe what they have from him if he's healthy enough to play, which it looks like he was able to go, probably didn't get any real love, based off of just the concept, again, of being injured and Jacobs being as strong as he has been all season. Had a very good game just recently, against Cisco 49ers, where they even said it was Nick Bosa said he's the best running back he's ever played against. Now, I don't know. That saying a lot. That he's played against some good running backs, to say the least. So, how true that is interesting. He didn't get into the game, obviously. So Zamir White and Britton Brown is another rookie who's hanging on that team. They might look to give these guys a shot and just say, you know what, here, let's see what you have. Let's put you in the offense and kind of go through the motions against a Kansas City team. Maybe not, but I feel like Jacobs is not going to get, even if he does play, might just play a half. These are some of those shutdowns where you have to kind of take that into consideration. So I feel like for this week, unfortunately, Josh Jacobs will not be the best running back in the history of football.
I hope you're right. I don't think you are in this spot, but I hope he doesn't play very much, because I have money on Derrick Henry to win the rushing title this year, and he's about 110 yards behind Jacobs coming into Week 18. So I do hope that they shut Jacobs down. But I think that as bad of a season as the Raiders have had, I would hope anyway for Josh Jacobs' sake that they would want to give him enough carries to allow him to win the rushing title this year. I think they're going to feed him. I think he's going to get plenty of touches. And I think I'm going to win this one, unfortunately. But that's all right. You got a couple other spots you can take some points, like maybe this one. My sit of the week at wide receiver is going to be Michael Pittman versus the Houston Texans. The Colts have progressively gotten worse under interim head coach Jeff Saturday since their big win over the Raiders in Week 10. They've gone away from Matt Ryan again, and this time turned to our hero Nick Foles. Unfortunately, the 2017 Foles magic that helped our Eagles win their first Super Bowl wasn't present in his first game and a half with the Colts. And since Saturday's taken over, the Colts have kind of turned more into like a run-first team, which is exactly what tends to work against the Texans. Houston's been the easiest running back matchup in fantasy all season. And the Colts offensive line, even though it has struggled in pass protection, they're the 26th rated offensive line per Pro Football Focus. They're actually much better at run blocking, where they rank as the 14th best line in run blocking. I think you're going to see a lot of Zach Moss and possibly some Deion Jackson in this game, where both teams are most likely going to struggle to score points. And on top of that, we still don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. As of right now, it looks like it's going to be Sam Ehlinger. And if that's the case, do you really want to start a wide receiver that's getting passes from Sam Ehlinger? I really don't want to do that. So I think if you're doing a fantasy championship here in Week 18, I think Michael Pittman scares me a little bit too much to want to have him in my lineup as inconsistent as he's been, even with good quarterback play.
Yeah, I agree. Very smart play. Guy that I am going to sit, and it's not based on him personally. I actually think he's still pretty good wide receiver. But Juju Smith-Schuster of the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Las Vegas Raiders, who, just touched base on the running back there. So kind of going a little back and forth with the two matchups. Has had some breakout performances. Last couple of weeks, not so much. In our league of record, just under 6 points and just over 4 points. You're starting to see Jerick McKinnon become a touchdown machine for that team. Obviously, Travis Kelce is having is it a career year for Travis Kelce at in his 30s? I would kind of think so. Andy Reid's been known to kind of sit guys when the games are a little bit maybe out of play. Now, again, we don't know yet where that's going to be. The Chiefs could be, fighting for the 1 seed or, just worrying about keeping guys healthy. And again, Andy Reid has always been known to be a guy that will take the cautious route, so to speak. He's not going to overdo it. He definitely doesn't want to see Pat Mahomes take a bad hit late in a game for no reason going into the playoffs. And again, I think a guy like Juju would also be a guy that kind of gets, maybe not so much put on the sideline, but again, looking at his usage the last couple of weeks and things like that, I think they're maybe do a half. If there's something serious for them to play for, they may look to kind of push the issue. I'll be interested to see if this game is for anything. But at the end of the day, I think that Juju is not going to be fantasy relevant for this week. Come the playoffs, different story.
All right, at the tight end position, I'm going to sit Pat Freiermuth versus the Cleveland Browns this week. I very much expect this game to sort of be a mirror image of the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game that we saw in Week 17. Both of these teams have struggled moving the ball through the air and scoring points, and both defenses have been sort of the better side of the ball for these teams. The Browns are the 6th best team versus the tight end position, but ranked 26 versus running backs. So I think the Steelers are going to want to keep the ball on the ground in this one and run it with their 2 effective running backs, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. And when Kenny Pickett does throw the ball, he tends to look at his wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens first, and Freiermuth is sort of a lot of his passes end up being, he's not the primary target. It's when the pocket breaks down, Pickett's got to move. That's when he tends to look for Freiermuth a little bit more. And I know he's 6th in receptions and yards at the tight end position this year, but this game script calls for another low-scoring game for Pittsburgh where, just like last week, where Freiermuth only scored 6.6 PPR points. So not really thrilled to play for Freiermuth. I know when it comes to tight ends, there's not a ton of great options out there on the waiver wire. But if you have the ability and the luxury to be able to sit Freiermuth this week, I think you should do that because I don't see him having a very big game versus Cleveland.
Yeah, sounds about right. Not a stretch here, but for some people that might be looking for fool's gold, Hunter Henry last year was a guy that kind of helped a lot of people out at a tight end position when most of the big dogs were out. We know that Mac Jones likes to look for that safety valve because they don't really have a strong passing game, receiving core. There's questions of him as a quarterback. Jonnu Smith got knocked out with a concussion, and right off the bat, you saw that, Hunter Henry was a little bit more involved against a Miami defense that doesn't do too well against that position. Hunter Henry had 5 catches, 6 targets, 52 yards. So some folks might think, oh, here we go. They go against the Buffalo Bills this week, who are a top 3 defense against the tight end position. Look, it's just not going to work. I mean, they know to take him away, take that middle of the field away, that Jones is really the only way he feels comfortable is underneath the middle of the field. He doesn't go downfield. They don't play him to go downfield. So, there's that question, too, on how that works. Hunter Henry, definite sit this week. Don't try to get fancy. You can definitely find way, way, way better options out there. You should not be relying on this guy to get you a fantasy football title.
My defensive sit of the week is going to be the Tennessee Titans versus Jacksonville Jaguars. I am old enough to remember when you actually wanted to target Jacksonville's offense with your fantasy defense, but that's not the case this year. Under Doug Peterson, Jacksonville's become the 5th toughest matchup for fantasy defenses, giving up an average of just 4.5 fantasy points per game. I expect Tennessee to be prepared for this game, but against the Jacksonville offense, that's a top 12 scoring team this season. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for them. Tennessee is also likely to be starting Joshua Dobbs at quarterback again, which didn't go so well last week versus Dallas. And I know The Jags defense isn't the Cowboys defense, obviously. But if the Titans struggle to move the ball again this week, the time of possession could fall heavily on the Jaguars side and allow them to sort of, run the ball a little bit more, run the clock out, and shorten this game to the point where you don't really have a lot of opportunities for your fantasy defense. So Trevor Lawrence has looked really good. I don't want to have to play my defense against him, especially in a game that means this much. So as well as the Titans have been this year fantasy-wise, I think you definitely want to stay away from him in this game against the Jags.
I will finish out our start sits with my defensive sit of the week. Baltimore Ravens. They're going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. It's always tricky. It's AFC North, so I think there's a lot of physicality. I kind of have both of these teams. I have all 4 teams involved in my start sits. I have Pittsburgh over Cleveland as my start. I have the Ravens as my sit against Cincinnati. Earlier this year, they did win 19-17 against Cincinnati. Baltimore was at home. They scored a modest 6 points. You're going to be in Cincinnati, and the Bengals are going to have some stuff to play for. There is a sliver of hope that Baltimore can win their division. And I don't think that defense is going to be able to hold back this offense that looks like they're starting to click a little bit. They've had some injuries and things like that. But, the Cincinnati Bengals could end up being that team to beat. And they still have a shot at the 1 seed if they win back-to-back games and the Chiefs lose. So you do have a lot to play for here. Those scenarios do factor in. I don't like the Ravens defense this week to get you double-digit points or anything like that. I think they're going to be outside the top 10 easily against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I think if Cincinnati plays their starters, the Ravens are probably going to be in trouble there. I agree. There is a scenario where Cincinnati doesn't have anything to play for and may. All right, folks, that is it for our start sits for this week. Please remember to follow us on social media. We are at the 9 Route 1 and at Scott from Delco. Also, make sure that you follow us wherever you're listening to the show. Click that little plus in the upper right-hand corner or the little arrow that automatically downloads the podcast. That would mean a great deal to us here to help us kind of keep doing what we're doing. Also, feel free to check out our website, which is www.the9routeffb.com. You can also email the show if you have any questions. We are at the9routeffb@gmail.com. And before we head out, we want to say thank you to Mickey's Pub in Tuckerton, New Jersey for partnering with the show. If you're looking for a great place to watch the NFL on Sunday, Mickey's is it. Great food, drink specials, and all the football you can handle. Mickey's Pub, 327 East Main Street in Tuckerton, New Jersey, where friends and family meet. And if you're looking for a good place to watch those Week 18 games, man, check out Mickey's because it's going to be jumping over there this Sunday. I'm sure of it. I happened to stop in there not this past week, but the week before. And it was the week before. No, it was 2 weeks. It was the week before Christmas. And there was a good crowd of people in there getting rowdy for some football. So definitely check Mickey's out if you are in the area. Scott, do you have any last-minute tidbits you'd like to throw out there before we head out for the night?
Again, we appreciate everybody for listening throughout the season. We're going to continue on with some playoff concepts, maybe talk about our choices for the games, in a friendly concept, just like we do with the starts and sits, talk about breakdown matchups, talk about who we like, who we don't like, not so much on the player level, but, on a team level, we'll talk about the point spreads and the over-unders and the weather conditions and, things like that, just to kind of keep things relevant, maybe splash a little fantasy news in there for those that are year-round peeps. We love everybody out there that listens and everybody that doesn't, because you're always, just a click away to take a part of our show with you. You could download us on Podbean. You can watch us on YouTube and listen, Apple Podcasts. You have all these options. Just put us on, give us a try. We definitely want to be a part of your fantasy football regimen, so to speak. And hopefully the 9 Route can take you deep into your fantasy football playoffs to a title. Good luck to everybody out there going into that final week of weeks, game of games, all the way up to Green Bay, Detroit, Sunday night. For Pat, I am Scott. We will talk to you soon, and good luck. Peace.